last episode, but a lot has happened in this last 2.5 weeks. That's exactly what we're going to talk about. If you're watching the YouTube, you will notice that I'm standing. I'm going to get in there early before anyone on the YouTube gives me crap about it, because I have swapped to the ergonomic desk. And the only reason I've done it is because I was getting sore hips, and then a physio told me to stand up during the day. So stay tuned and I'll keep you guys posted if this actually makes a difference, while Jack just leans over in the most tightest position possible.
Oh, it's the best.
So let's go over it. Last couple of weeks. So when did we leave? I think I left like June. What was it? Like June 20 something. I don't know, like 25th.
I think you were 23rd or something, and I was 26th or 27th.
That was a while ago. And then you were a couple of days after. So it was a crazy couple of weeks. Let's talk about it, because you were over with Jenna Fabian for the PFL, PFL 6, I think it was. And then we had UFC 276, where we had Israel Adesanya, Alex Volkanovski, and then we had Brad Riddell. So it was a huge week in terms of UFC. That's the first time I can remember for a UFC card, especially in this part of the world, where we had 2 UFC champs from Australasia, Australia, and New Zealand, both going co-main event and main event. So, and both of those guys, obviously both our clients. It was a massive week on that end, but also equally as massive as a week with you in Atlanta. And I think this is what I want to talk about with you, Jack, because a lot of people, when they look at this on social media, they're like, oh, okay, this is like cool job, do all this, but there's so much stuff that goes in the background that you just would not believe. And getting these weeks, these fight weeks where we travel overseas, it's just a whole nother beast. And yes, what we do day to day is really cool. It's really fun. It is the best job in the world. But when you have to incorporate all that with the travel and get all this going, there's just so much more to it than what we show on our social media. I want to talk about your week, because your week was crazy. And just talk us through. Let's talk through what happened when you were meant to fly out. Go through the whole thing with us.
So I was supposed to fly out Sunday of that week. So Sunday, we were supposed to leave at 5 in the morning, my flight was, and then we'll arrive Sunday. So then we have that full fight week. So we were weighing in on Thursday. We get there Sunday. It was all prepared. So get to the airport, wait in this horrendous line in the Melbourne airport for Qantas. I don't know what's going on with the airports at the moment, but they're a bit crazy. I wait there for an hour, and then I went to check in, and she goes, "Sorry, love, your flight's been cancelled." I said, "No, I need to be on this. I need a flight. Like, when's my next flight?" And she's like, "No, your tickets have been cancelled." And I'm like, "What's going on?" So I called you, and I called Jenna. I go, "What's going on?" I'm like, "My flights have been cancelled." She goes, "Oh, my visa." So the New Zealand US consulate hadn't given her visa in time, so the agency had to cancel our tickets. So then that was just mentally I prepared myself, I'm ready to go, and then I have to go home. So I'm back in my apartment trying to think of what's going on, speaking to Jenna, because we have to wait. She's like, it's a waiting game. Wait to get my visa, and then as soon as I get my visa, then they book the tickets. So then Sunday I'm waiting, Monday we're waiting, and then Monday night about 6 p.m. Jenna calls me and goes, "Flight's booked tomorrow morning, be at the airport." So I'm like, all right, repacked, got everything ready, went to the airport. Got to the airport, waiting for my transfer to Atlanta. They lost my bags. And they're like, "Sorry, your next flight is in 8 hours time." So I was stuck at LAX for 8 hours. So which was, again, just another roadblock. So I'm just sitting in LAX, basically just trying to do some work and just, keep myself busy. And then Jenna met me for that flight. And then we got to Atlanta at 3 in the morning. Then the PFL told us didn't have a big enough car for our luggage. So I had to Uber it to the hotel. So we got to the hotel at about, I'd say 5 a.m. by that point. So it was 5 a.m. on that Wednesday morning. So Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. So that was the start of of us just getting there.
So that was, you guys arrived, was it Wednesday? So technically you arrived Wednesday, 5 a.m. And then weigh-ins were on the Thursday, the following day. So like 24 plus 5 hours. So 29 hours away from that.
11 a.m. sharp on the Thursday weigh, and the commission was so if we're there at 11:01 wasn't going to work. So we got there at 5 a.m. I think I got about 2 hours sleep, got up and trained just to get myself mentally ready for the day, and then we began the day. We literally, by the time that, I let Jenna have a bit of a sleep, because obviously she had a very long transit herself, because it ended up for myself, it was like 38 hours or something ridiculous like that to get to Atlanta from Melbourne. So like let her sleep. So we had 24 hours by the time she got up to make weight, and that's when the pressure started. But again, we had to work with what we had. Like we both agree we have 24 hours. We're very set on making the weight. Of course we were. So we got straight to work. Basically went down to the workout room. Myself and Jenna got a workout in. Just a bit of a light sweat just to see how she's tracking, just to get that kind of that water weight that kind of can be associated with flights, not always, but can be. So just get the fluid moving, get her feeling good and stuff like that. And then that's the start of the day. Let Jenna have a bit more of a sleep, and then I had to plan out from that night until the morning, but how we're going to strategically make weight in the safest possible manner.
It's wild, because like when I go over for those UFC events, like I was there for 2 weeks total. So we were there, I think 10 days prior. So we landed the Thursday before. So Thursday night before the fight week even started that next week. So we have plenty of time to like organize everything. I have plenty of time to get the guys' food ready. I like doing that because I can do what we call like a pre-fight week plan with them, where you just basically prep the guy's body with heaps of carbs, heaps of salt, heaps of fiber, all the things that you are going to take out in that fight week. It makes it so much easier. It's a whole different ball game when you're trying to do that in transit. And a couple of months ago, this happened with BJ Bland with PFL. For whatever reason, we're struggling to get the Kiwi athletes, the guys in New Zealand, they're struggling to get these visas. For whatever reason, they're just not getting granted. And someone there just does not understand how this whole process works. Like it's not like a rugby game where you can just rock up a day before and then just get a good sleep and then go play the next day. Like you got to make weight. And I don't think they understand that, because BJ was in a similar situation. I was on the phone with him. He had his sauna suit on in LAX, cutting weight, running laps in LAX with his scale, checking his weight, because he landed at like 7 a.m. when the weigh-ins were 9 a.m. that morning or something crazy. So it just adds this whole load of stress to the situation. You can't do your fight week plan. You can't eat your fight week food. You're traveling, you're stressed, you're exhausted. Then you rock up and you got 24 hours to cut whatever weight you have left.
Yeah, so that's it. That's exactly right. Like that was a huge factor as well, trying to mitigate the stress of the situation. Obviously, it was stressful for myself, but trying to make sure that Jenna was as relaxed as possible, which obviously is not easy. She's an athlete. She's got 24 hours to weigh in. She knew it was crunch time. So me just trying to take that load. And again, by the time we've settled and trying to get everything together, like, just talking, then what people didn't realize, what they didn't see, and what you don't see a lot of the time is that she also had media obligations. I had to follow her around while she did interviews. So she's trying to cut weight while doing interviews. We're trying to organize all this paperwork, all this other kind of behind the scenes stuff that, I shout out to the PFL. The PFL staff were absolutely amazing in accommodating everything we needed. I think they were like so fantastic and so helpful. But again, there was obligations she had to do before we made weight. So we're trying to do a weight cut plus do all the stuff she needed to do within a 24-hour time frame, which was incredibly stressful, especially for her.
Yeah, and add to the fact, I think if anyone follows the sport, especially Jen's career, like we've worked with Jen for a while, and we did 3 of her last fights, not her previous one, but 3 previous, where we all made through and we made weight. And then Jen stayed stateside in America for the next camp after that. And it just made sense for her to use like a nutritionist that was closer by. But Jen does cut a bit of weight, and it just, unfortunately, there's a few things that just didn't work out for her with her new nutritionist and whatever. The process just didn't go down as well as it could have. And there's lots of different things that can happen with females that interrupt the process. And she did unfortunately miss weight her last fight. And so the crunch was on, right? Like you miss weight twice in any of these professional organizations, and it's a pretty good chance you're getting cut, no matter how good you are. If you're missing weight, there's a good chance you're getting cut.
Yeah, they were specifically they were coming up to me and be like, is this going to happen? Like, is this going to happen? And they basically were alluding to the fact that if she didn't make weight this time, she may be cut. Like that's what they were kind of alluding to, because they kept kind of asking that question. And, I was in contact with the PFL, I don't know, athlete liaison or whatever. And he was very helpful, but they were very stressed about this whole process. Especially, they were very empathetic with the fact that we couldn't get the visa and there was a lot of things out of our control. But again, as soon as we landed, like me and Jenna sat down, I said, like, this is the cards we've been dealt. we've just got to get this done. And then lucky Jenna's a professional, Jenna changed, her mindset was there. And then we just, that night, that afternoon, we began the process. We began the process of reducing that water weight so she could make weight.
Yeah, it's a crazy process. And like by the numbers, it was a pretty decent one. Like we have a lot of really strict rules as a team, right? Like where you just don't let people do it. I'm not in the business of, injuring our athletes trying to make weight. Like we're in the game of performance. We want to make that process as easy as possible so they get the best performance come fight night. That's what gets them paid more. That's what gets us paid more. That's what this whole thing is about. Just with the whole situation, right? It was just crazy. And I'll give credit to Jen, like for everything that went on. And like, you pretty much lost 2 days of that fight week acute weight loss program. Yeah. So you pretty much lost it. So that's 2 days of weight loss. So then you're behind the 8 ball by so far. And yeah, Jen did have to get that. Like, and this is why I think it's important. It's a good thing to talk about because all of this does happen in the background. Like this would be happening to so many different athletes around the world. And thankfully, like Jenna had you there. Like imagine if she was just there trying to navigate this herself. Like she's smart. She knows what's going on, but it's like, it's like when you're cutting weight, you're a bit delirious and you're all over it. You're grumpy, like you haven't eaten like carbs properly in a few days, and having someone there to be like, you know what, like we can do this, like by the numbers, this is safe. We can do this. We've just got to do this and that and this and that. And we've got to hit these timings perfectly. And you know what, just trust me on this. Like having that, like you said, to take away the stress is just so, so, so important.
Yeah. And it was also because you were overseas. You were in a different city with the other boys. So it was just me and herself. So the transitions, to make the safe transitions out of the sauna and the bath and stuff like that was vital that I was on point at every step, because I was the only one there to support her at the current time, because we really didn't have anyone else's help. So that's why I give her even more credit, because it was just me and her, and I was kind of just trying to guide her through the situation. Like, I'm not going to say it was easy. I'm not going to say that, it was, the process was, simple and everything went to plan. Like obviously with every weight cut, especially with this time frame, nothing goes to plan. But I just think that, the principles, me and yourself were talking at every step. We're messaging each other on the phone, making sure that, we're talking about what was going on, the kind of the signs of safety and stuff like that. And in the end, obviously, some people say she looked the greatest at the weigh-ins. No, she didn't. But at the end of the day, like these are the factors that no one had actually seen. You saw, it's the weight cut. No, it's the days of stress. The fact that she didn't even know she was going to be there. The flight, the fact that we, didn't sleep. I don't know if you've met Jenna. Jenna's 6 foot. If you try to sleep on an economy plane, I'm 6'2", so I never sleep on planes either. And then between those 2 days, so she had 4 hours sleep. In those 2 days, I slept a total of 4 hours too. So there's a lot of different factors that came along with the way that it ended up being. But testament to her mental strength, and I think like testament to the foundations that we use on these weight cuts to kind of get her on the scales and do so. Then she made weight, and that's what obviously through all the struggles, the elation at the end, the fact that she rehydrated. If you saw her at the officials, she looked full. She was back, strong, healthy. I think that was like testament to testament to the strength of herself, and obviously what we did.
Yeah. And I think it's important to talk about this because all this stuff just goes behind the scenes, right? Like if you're just in the general public, you just kind of tune in and look at the weigh-ins for like 5 minutes and then you watch the fight the next day and you don't really see all of this. And like I said earlier, it seems to be like a recurring theme for the New Zealand athletes that they're struggling to get these visas, and this keeps happening. That's why I want to talk about it because yeah, like we're not making excuses for big weight cuts or whatever, or like tooting our own horn too much. I just think it's important to talk about. Like, give these guys a bit of credit where credit is due. Like that's an incredibly tough thing mentally to put someone through, like all that stress, and then physically to ask them to do this process while you're taking days and days out of a process that needs like a 5-day minimum length to be able to done safely. It's just crazy, right? So I think it's important we talk about, but like you said, you got it done. We got the job done. Jenna didn't get the result, but you know what? That's the way the cookie crumbles, and hopefully next time she bounces back a bit stronger, and hopefully, we don't see all this muck around with the visa and travel and everything else again.
Yeah, well, I really hope that, because they'll probably be on me again. So I really hope everything goes smoother next time. But yeah, then what happened is that we we finished. We got the weigh-ins. Everyone, we saw all the medicals got passed, and I gave Jenna all her rehydration fuel and all the food, prepared it all ready for her to go. And then I had to run to the airport to get on the flight to Vegas to meet up with you, so we could start the cuts with the boys for the UFC.
Yeah, that was a funny one because Eugene was with us all week, and you guys. Did you see Eugene when you landed and he left like a day later? I think it was. Like you guys just met up.
We just missed each other at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, you like cross paths. Like Eugene had to fly over to Atlanta to corner, and you had to fly back to to help me out with the cuts. But yeah, I guess let's go over to the UFC and talk about that. And that was as a team, that was probably the biggest week we've had in the books as a team. I think that was a monumental just for Australian, New Zealand, Australasian, Anzac MMA. That was a huge card, like UFC 276. Like, when have you ever heard of two champions being from Australia and New Zealand, our part of the world, headlining and co-headlining an event at International Fight Week? Like, it was humongous. Like, it was really, really cool to be a part of. And I think just the whole setup was awesome, right? Like, we had that massive little complex on just about 15 minutes from the strip, just outside. It was in Las Vegas, just at a suburb outside of Las Vegas, like this crazy house when we walked in. I don't know if anyone saw Embedded or anything, but saw, like, it was like this weird, wacky, like movie theme kind of house with like all these beds. It housed like 20 or 22 people or something. There was so many of us in there. It had like a pool out the back, a basketball court. And we're all like playing basketball every day. And it was really cool. It's good for me because I had a really nice, like, big kitchen. I had two kitchens actually to pick from, big fridge for storage, and good supermarkets down the road. And it was really good environment. Like, it was good having all the guys there. It was really good energy. And like I said, we got there 10 days early, so you could kind of get over the jet lag. Like, I could do this pre-fight week diet with these guys. Like I said, you just prep their bodies for the fight week. So you get plenty of sodium in there, you get plenty of carbs, you get their good amount of fluid in before they start their fight week. And then you start doing your water load, you start doing your sodium reduction, you start doing your carb reduction, your fiber reduction, and all of that stuff. It was really cool though. Like, it was such a cool setup, and just having everyone there. But in saying that, it was a lot. Like, I think it was a lot. And again, I want to say, and we all want to talk about this, because I think when you look at our Instagrams, and even if you just see like the stories we put up or the reels or just like the posts or whatever, you see it, and people often message me and they're like, man, that's so good. Like, best job ever. And don't get me wrong, it is the best job ever, but it's so mentally and physically exhausting. Like, it is crazy those weeks, like what you have to put yourself through. And it's hard to describe. And unless you see it, I remember the first time you came and saw it, and just like how mind blown it was for you. Like, holy crap, this is so physically and mentally exhausting. And just to give people like an idea of what a day looks like, is like, if you want to train yourself, like, we could all train at night. And like, I'm like a very mentally, I have to get up first thing in the morning. I've done it every single day since I was like 15 or something, like get up first thing in the morning and go work out. So it's like, I have to do that to like set the stand of my day. But then I have to also make breakfast and everything for these guys who are getting up at like 7:30. So for me to be able to do that, I'm up at 5 a.m. every day, and then going working out for a couple of hours and then coming back to the house. So you're up at 5 a.m., do your workout, come back, like get showered. And then the guys are slowly starting to wake up, but they're waking up at different times. So say we had Brad waking up at 7:30, then he's going to eat. Alex would be waking up at like 8:39, and Israel's waking up at 10. It's like a bit staggered, and you're making breakfast for them all throughout that. But that's when your day starts, right? And then once you hit that first meal, that's when you're planning out the rest of the day with them. So you go, okay, we've got this meal, and then this many hours later, I need you to eat a snack, and then we're going to have lunch, and then we're going to have another snack, and then we're going to have dinner, and then your pre-training meal. And the guys, they all want to train around the time that they fight, right? So they're fighting in Vegas anywhere between 7 and 10 p.m. So we're in the gym going over to the UFC PI at 9 p.m. that night, training for an hour. It's 10 p.m. We come back. By the time we get back to the kitchen, it's like 11 p.m. And then I'm making them meals. You pre-prep everything. But by the time you're feeding them, it's like 11:30, 12. They want to stay up late because they want to sleep in anyway. So it's like, the days are just so long, and you're just always doing something. Like, you're just always doing it. You're always running around, and then you add media. Like, you've got two of the biggest superstars in the UFC at the moment. They've just got crazy amounts of media, and we're in a house over here. So there's times where you're like driving around, you're trying to get them food, and you're like, I got to drop food here. I got to drop food here. Okay, Israel wants this type of meal, but Alex wants this type of meal, and you've got to make all these different things and accommodate for them. And it's just so much work. Like, don't get me wrong, it's like, it is a lot of fun. It's really cool. Don't get me wrong. But like the days are just so long and exhausting. I get so many messages during fight week and they're just like, man, this looks like the best. It's like, it is the best. Like, don't get me wrong, it is the best, but far out. Like, there's a bit more to it that you don't see.
Yeah, I think after all the work was done, the weigh-ins, you fed the boys, even like, obviously fight day, you're still making meals and stuff like that. I think we did get a few comments from the boys about how terrible we looked, but like how exhausted we looked. But yeah, like exactly what I said, like it's absolutely amazing. Like, so thankful we get to travel the world, hang around and help like the best, athletes in the world. But again, it's an exhausting process because I think like every day we probably got like an average of, I got for those days an average of 3 hours of sleep, a night. I remember by the time I got in from Atlanta, I saw yourself and saw the guys. We had a bit of a quick feed, and then we went to bed. And then I remember I could hear someone walking up and down near my room. So I'm like, oh, what's that? Maybe it's Geordie. So I get up, and it was Volk, and Volk was like, yeah, I want to start soon. So I'm like, all right, sweet, ready, here we go. Then you're already up as well, so just prepping everything like that. So again, like it's not like something that we can plan to a certain point, but then the day it's what they want when they want, and that's why we've got to be on like 24/7. So it's not like, oh, we're going to go have an 8 hour sleep. No, we have to be up and ready to go whenever the guys want or need their stuff done.
Yeah, and that's the other thing with like when you're working with guys like Israel Adesanya and Alex Volkanovski, like it's not just about making weight, right? Like at the end of the day, they know how to make weight. Like I've worked with both of them for years. Like we know what the process is like. It's like, how do you do that and get it as close to 100% every single time? Like if you don't get that process 100% perfect every single time, you're doing something wrong because that's the standard. And then you need to build on that. And it's like, okay, what did we do last time that we need to learn from so that we can give Alex and we can give Israel that little bit extra when they can refuel, whether it's the rehydration, the refuel, whether it's a certain process that we use when we're actually cutting the weight, how much time we use in the bath, whether we're using a sauna blanket, whether we're using a portable sauna, like all these little things add up. You want to make it as smooth as possible. And you have to be really switched on. Like you have to be very, very switched on, which can be very difficult when you slept like 3-4 hours for the previous 10 days. And you've kind of been just like working out all these numbers. So it's quite tough, but like at the end of the day, it was really good. Right. And I think one thing I always tell people is when you work with athletes for long enough, you really get to know them. And that's when it really starts being fun. Like I'm so lucky and fortunate that I've been able to work, say, with Alex and Israel and Brad for years. And so I know this process with them. And so you can do things that are probably a bit different than what you see other people. Like I was making them like fried chicken I was making them yellow curries, like I kept fiber in for a lot of them, like a lot later, because I know that because I got to play around with that pre-fight week diet, that I knew I could get away with having a little bit more and then cutting it down shorter. And then so many cool things that you can do when you know the athlete's body really well, which is like, I'm very, very grateful. And I think those little extra 1%ers make a big difference in fight week. Like the fact that you can, get ready for training and you get to eat like a homemade yellow curry that has no sodium in there, has no carbs in there. It's like perfect for what you're trying to do. And you're still losing the weight, but you still get to enjoy that. Like every night I was giving the guys like ice cream before they went to bed, and all these little things that you probably can't get away with if you've never worked with someone, because you don't know, one, how they're going to react to it. Are they going to freak out and trust you enough that this is going to work? And two, will it actually work in their body? And finding different ways. And that's one of the coolest things that I've noticed about doing these fight weeks again and again with the guys, is that you can get really experimental and really push the boundary and continue to push that envelope to get those extra 1% with them.
Yeah, that's what, and that's the biggest thing I saw. Like obviously when I was watching you do the acute weight cut with the guys, is that you have all the data from all the previous ones, and you know how it all works. You know exactly how long the bath and how long they need to bath for, what the temperature of that is, or the rounds they need to do, and the timing, like how long it takes them to get off X amount of kilos. That's what I think was like is so vital in this game, is understanding that athlete and working together with someone for a long period of time. This process, like you said, it becomes easier, but that means when it becomes easier, there's more things you can do. You can make it better for them. You can make it more enjoyable for them. And the stress just comes off. Israel said to you multiple times when we're in that room, he's like, you got, you call you the magician, because like, he knows that you know what you're doing, and he knows that he trusts the process. And that's what I'm saying. That another thing, trusting the process. When these guys at whatever level give you that trust, it just makes the whole process so much easier.
Yeah, I think we should go over the weight cut part of it because it was interesting, right? Like, and that was probably, to be honest, one of my biggest concerns of the week was like, how do we manage all three of these athletes at the same time who are very like different athletes? And then, they're very good and diligent with how much they cut weight. Like, I wouldn't say any of them do like a crazy amount of weight to cut, but they're all very regimented. And the way we go about it with each of them is quite different. I've spoken about this on the podcast before and spoken about it on our social media is like the psychological side of cutting weight and the words that you choose to use and the music that you listen to and the timing when you ask them to do certain things. And okay, I want you to move in this bath, but I know he doesn't like it. So how do I get him in this bath and then make it as smooth as possible? That's all really, really niche for that athlete. And that's quite easy to do when it's just you one-on-one with that athlete, when it's just you in a room and you're taking control and, you're completely engaged with them. Then when you've got multiple athletes that you're trying to look after, that's when it becomes this really like interesting balancing act. It's like, okay, I know Alex at this stage of thing, and I know that he likes listening to this type of music, but I know Brad's at this stage, and okay, this is where he goes quiet and he doesn't like any sound whatsoever. And Israel's still and he's having a good time. He's still having a good time over there. So how do we balance all of this and make sure each of them are having a good experience through this and they're getting the most out of this and it's the most seamless as possible, but we're still catering to all of their individual needs? That's by far the most difficult part of it when you're doing it with multiple athletes.
Yeah. And then everyone wants to come into the room as well. So it's just like, I remember I was like trying to like squeeze between certain people because like everyone's obviously just wants to support their friends and their teammates, but it's also like it's a small room with two or three guys who we're trying to like make sure, like I remember I was running, making sure the bath was still hot and making sure the environment was still hot. But yeah, trying to like run around and making sure that everyone the individual needs, that's definitely the hardest part of it. I reckon I think we did it very well that day, but again, like we've done this together for so long that I can tell what you need by the certain looks, and you just give me a look to the side so I knew what to do. But it's just one of those things that again, like it's so hard when there's so many different personalities, especially at this level. Those guys are very different personalities and have very different needs at that point of the cut.
Yeah, that synchronicity between us is really important, right? Because like I remember at one stage I was with Alex and then I looked over at Israel and I had like this super wet like rag in one hand. I was like, I got to ditch this. And I was like looking around for a dry one. And I just like glanced at you and then I just saw like a dry towel get thrown over in my vision. I like caught it like perfect time to wipe Israel's head. And I was like, oh, that was really cool. I hope that got on camera somewhere. But like it definitely helps when you've got someone who knows what they're doing and you've worked together. And it's like, it's good, eh? Like, and I think for anyone listening to this, and if like you're a practitioner and you're thinking, oh man, like how do I get to that point? It's practice, right? It's practice. I think there's one, first and foremost, like you have to understand the process and make sure you're doing it safely with your athlete and put them in a position where you can be a bit more experimental, given that they'll be safe. You would never, ever do anything crazy or experimental with these guys if they're really pushing them. They just shouldn't be cutting weight, period, if they're pushing the limit. But it is like, you really just got to get in there and you do have to get the hours in. I think that's one of the toughest things for practitioners coming up, right? Is like, we need more people trained in this area. We need more people doing this, but you need it in a supervised setting and you need to have people overlooking and you need to be doing it on low risk athletes so that when you're with like the higher risk athletes, you can do it properly and you know how to just say, no, we're cutting this off. This is absolutely not happening. Or you know what, they probably can be okay. And we'll just make sure we get this rehydration in. That's one of the hardest things I think is how do we figure it out where we've got lots of these up and coming practitioners? How do you get them experience? How do you get them supervised experience when they get, hands-on? That is like so important because it's a huge important part of this process.
But yeah, it's like reps in the tank with everything. It's repetitions. Like, obviously, we've been doing this. I'm still doing it. I still do it in the local scene. I still help all my guys and stuff like that. And we've done it so many times over the years we've been doing this. But again, like, yeah, understanding the science is so important, but understanding the little intricacies of how to do it and what to look for. Like, there's little things that me and you can look at very simply and know what's going on, or the numbers that we can run in our head. Okay, this is how much they've lost in a round. This is what they're probably going to attract. We've got this stuff that is inherent in us now because we've done it so many times. But again, it's really hard to get. I'm not saying it's easy to get these reps in the tank or get this experience, because I still know now, like some of my guys, if I'm in Australia, they want me there and they don't want anyone else. Like I'm like, oh, maybe I can get someone from the gym or someone else to help. Like, no, we want you there. So it's, again, it comes back to that trust and working together. So we're not saying it's easy to just go out there and get heaps of experience, because it's hard to get experience. But again, it is vital to do that, and building those relationships with people is something that I think that people, it's not just us walking in a room going jump in a bath. It's building that rapport, building that relationship, and obviously understanding the science is the foundation.
Yeah, couldn't say it better. I think last thing before we finish up, like performance wise, like obviously Brad didn't get much an opportunity. If people are watching, I was actually talking to Brad after. It was a liver shot that he reckons he got. Like Jalen kind of like slipped a punch at him with a liver, and that's what buckled him and got him caught in the guillotine. But unfortunate, like top level, that lightweight division is just absolutely insane. So it's like game of inches. So Brad will be back. Brad has, like, I've never met anyone with the tenacity that Brad Riddell has. He'll definitely be back, and he's already firing up, and he's already got a date for his next fight in a couple of months. The mad bloke. He's like, I want a couple of weeks off, and then I'm getting back into camp. Like, it's just crazy. But both Alex and Israel, like Israel was fantastic. Like I think technically, like as a MMA fan and as someone that's quite into like kickboxing and like the technical side of MMA, I thought Israel's performance was great, and it was such a good performance to watch on a technical sense and just how he controlled that fight. But I think, if we're being real, like Alex really stole the show. Like that third fight with Max is like he wanted to make a statement, and I think I get a lot of messages about like Alex in particular. They're like, man, like what do you feed that guy? And I've said it before. I think Alex Volkanovski is by far the best athlete I've ever worked with. I think he's the best athlete we have in Australia, period. Like I've never met someone with conditioning quite like he has, with the stamina that he has, like the strength, the power to weight ratio is just insane. Like we test all these metrics all through fight camp. Chris Jaffrey, strength conditioning coach, Jaff tests everything. He sends me the numbers. It's insane. Like how his body just knows at certain parts of the camp just to be this, and he continues to get better. That's what blows my mind. Is like still in this part of his career, Volk is still getting better with his numbers. Like we're getting better at his weight cut. He's getting better with his body composition. He's getting better with how he fuels around training, with how he fuels on the day of the fight. And he's getting better with how he manages his training, how he manages his recovery, how his strength and conditioning is going during camp. Like, I know there's a big statement. I don't think we're even close to seeing the best Volk yet. That's the craziest thing. I think he's just going to keep getting better and better and better.
Definitely agree.
Yeah, I think let's just wrap that up there. That's us for time. But yeah, quick little recap of what we've been up to the last couple of weeks. We said it before, we'll say it again. Like these fight weeks, man, they're the best ever. Like they are so good and so great for, but they are pretty mentally, physically exhausting. If you're someone who's listening and wants to get in this field, you're a young practitioner, you think, man, like Jack and Geordie have the best job. Like I would agree, we have the best job in the world, I think, but it comes at a cost, right? Like it's not all rainbows and butterflies. It's pretty tough work, pretty mentally, physically exhausting, but worth every cent of it, especially when you get the results like the guys did and you just see people like Alex and Israel and they just keep getting better and better. It is all worth it. But let's wrap that up there. Any final words, Jack?
No, I think, yeah, as you said, it's an amazing experience, but I'm definitely happy to be home in the greatest city in the world, being Melbourne.
Second greatest. So I'm off again in, I think, less than 2 weeks now for Kai France to take the belt in Dallas. So I think we'll do another recap once I get back from that. But until then, thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you on the next episode.